On the morning of June 11th, I'm awoken by a barrage of text messages from my coworker Torin, who is at this time coming off a night shift where he spent most of the night watching the USGS webcam on Kilauea. There was no fountaining overnight, just intermittently bubbling within the cinder cone. I'm getting off of work now. I'm gonna run over to Mac's house to grab my stuff. Sounds like we're pulling the trigger then, I quickly replied. The previous day, I had spent most of the day in bed, pumping myself with fluids, ferociously trying to fight off a cold that unfortunately had gotten both Mac and I. So unfortunately, Mac couldn't make it on this particular mission. I had gotten myself to the point where I felt slightly better, although even a few days later, you can still hear a little bit of lingering congestion and cough, so I apologize for that. I did something similar back in April where I pulled the trigger on an early morning flight and was able to capture some beautiful fountain from the south vent. But the latest eruptions had evolved to feature a beautiful display of lava that had gone even higher than the one that I captured before. And they also featured a distinctive lava arch in the process, which I was eager to capture this time around. So a few hours later, we found ourselves on a flight heading over to the Big Island. Shortly after arriving in Hilo, we were watching on the webcam and slowly saw the lava activity started to build. We decided to grab a quick bite from Burger King instead of sitting down to eat lunch at Hawaiian Style Cafe and booked it directly towards the volcano. By the time we arrived in Volcanoes National Park, the fountaining was in full effect. I was stoked for Torin, who had attempted to witness some of these high fountaining events in the past without very much success. He just had to go with, the right person. Since our Alaska trip together, Torin has learned somehow through osmosis how to take some pretty decent images with his iPhone. And some people at work were even comparing his iPhone shots to my beautiful masterpieces captured with my Sony mirrorless cameras. So admittedly, I didn't do too much in the field vlogging on this particular trip. So in this video, I wanted to compare the shots that Torin got with his iPhone 14 Pro Max to my shots with my Sony Alpha 1 Mark II with a variety of professional grade lenses. Another day, another eruption. This time we're with brother Torin, who just came off a night shift. This crazy guy just came off a night shift, zero sleep, but we're here. North side of Kilauea this time. These eruptions I wanted to definitely check out because they've been shooting up higher than the last time we were here. And they've been kind of doing this little bit of an arch formation. And I thought by coming to the north side, we'd probably get a little bit more of the arch formation, but it's more of a straight line. I think we kind of have to be more towards the, let's see, what is this? The north rim or the northeastern rim to try and see if we can get that arch. But grab some shots with the iconic ohia tree. There's the world famous now hiker 808 Justin down there. Shout out to Justin. Make sure you check out all his work as he covers pretty much every single eruption, at least on these latest episodes. But yeah, just taking some footage up here. We're about to head down to maybe the south side and just see what else we can get here today. Try to see if we can get that iconic arch shot of the volcano. I figured we start this afternoon trying to get a shot of the high fountain with my iconic ohia lehua tree. And in my mind, I thought this was going to be a good idea, but unfortunately the wind that day was directly to our backs and therefore pushing the lava flow directly away from us. So we couldn't get that distinctive arch that I would hope to have gotten from this spot. But still, yeah, I think we got some pretty unique shots, but overall we didn't spend too much time at this particular spot. I'm surprised that even though Torin was standing right next to me, he didn't take an iPhone shot of the beautiful ohia tree next to the high fountain. Instead, he opted to capture a shot of the high fountain coming out of this little small ohia bush. Despite my obvious bias on this particular issue, I think just based off of composition alone, I think I'll take the W in round number 1. As we made our way around the East Rim, we made a pit stop at Kilauea Overlook, which gave us our first view of this beautiful lava arch. Torin was able to capture some beautiful shots of the eruption being framed perfectly by these beautiful ohia branches. And that's one advantage that iPhones have over these big, heavy camera setups. It's so much easier to pull out your iPhone from your pocket and try out different compositions and go exploring and just find unique angles on a particular location. Whereas somebody like me with a big ass heavy camera bag, my mind was just focused on finding a clearing to make sure I, get my tripod set up, get my whole gigantic rig set up. But man, once I was able to actually get all of my stuff set up, the shots that we took were absolutely beautiful. Using the Tamron 28-200, I was able to capture a wide variety of images from this particular lookout. This first shot is wide at 28 millimeters and features beautiful Mauna Loa peeking out from behind those clouds in the background. And the eruption is framed up perfectly by all of that greenery and also features the beautiful Kilauea crater floor. I was then able to punch into around 70 millimeters to feature a little bit more of that greenery. I was able to kind of creatively frame up the main eruption site of Kilauea with the eruption going on in the background. I thought long and hard about blending these two images from the eruption that happened years ago with the current eruption that was going on right now, but ultimately decided against it, mostly out of pure laziness. Would it be cheating if I exposure blended this shot? A little bit of blending.
Day of a lifetime.
Double eruption. Finally, punching in all the way at 200 millimeters gave me the nice isolation of the beautiful lava arch that I was looking for. I was definitely happy to get such a wide variety of shots from this particular lookout. All right, let's compare these shots to some of Torin's iPhone shots. Interestingly enough, he framed up his wide shot pretty similar to how I framed up my wide shot. Although I wish that he maybe angled the camera just a little bit lower, include less of the sky and more foreground to kind of balance out this image. The same thing applies to his mid-range shot. He framed it up very similarly. I just would have liked to see it a little bit more balanced with a little bit more foreground. Interestingly enough, he wasn't able to capture a telephoto shot of the eruption from this angle, unlike the professional, of course, but he was able to capture some pretty cool tight footage by filming with his iPhone through his binoculars. All right, so we're finally heading down towards the south end. We're still actually getting a little bit more of the arch, which is good. It's kind of what I wanted. Tried shooting from Kilauea and that was pretty nice because you could get a nice wide landscape view of everything, but wasn't as close, just wasn't ideal. So good thing, came to the south end, we were able to get parking, and yeah, you can actually still see the arch a little bit. So let's go handle the crowds and see how long we can last here in this heat that will eventually turn into cold. I blame Torin's howliness because as soon as we pulled up to the south vent, the eruption started to kind of die down. No longer were we able to get those beautiful high arching lava flows that were going well over the caldera wall. The eruption kind of died down and kind of contained itself within the crater wall. So instead of focusing on photographing the eruption, I shifted my attention to focus on photographing the birds. The crazy Kua'ekea, these white-tailed tropic birds that get way too close to the lava. Just like last time, there wasn't too much opportunities to photograph these guys. I was able to capture this clip of one that was relatively close to me, flying directly in front of the lava. However, my favorite bird shot from this afternoon has to be this shot of a Kua'ekea flying directly in front of Mauna Kea. I guess that is a good bird title. Kua'ekea in front of Mauna Kea. It's the Keas. Who cares? The harsh afternoon light made it quite difficult to photograph the volcano, especially when the lava flows were not as impressive as they were earlier. I was able to capture the shot where the lava was kind of making a mini arch, but of course it was nothing compared to the activity that we were getting just a few hours earlier. Here's Torin's shot from the afternoon. I love how he used the lava river to kind of lead the eye up to the two main fountains that were going off that afternoon. But because of that harsh afternoon light, you can see that there's a lot of glare coming off of that lava river. Of course, myself as a professional was able to professionally use a circular polarizer to reduce some of that glare, overall leading to a cleaner shot, in my opinion. Sunset was showing a lot of potential with all of these high clouds that were around. So we all crossed our fingers and prayed to Madame Pele that she would hold on until just after sunset. Even though the lava flows was nothing to how it was just a few hours earlier, we were still hoping to capture a beautiful sunset with whatever lava was going on. I was able to capture this shot of the sun just crossing the ridgeline of Mauna Loa. And let's just say when we compare it to the iPhone's Sunstar, the lens flaring on the iPhones has a long way to go if it wants to catch up to the beautiful Sunstars that these beautiful mirrorless lenses create on their own. After the sun dipped behind Mauna Loa, I did set up a time lapse and we were rewarded with a beautiful light show, and thankfully Madame Pele held on for that as well. These sunset images that Torin was able to capture actually impressed me quite a bit. The one advantage that iPhones have over regular mirrorless and DSLR cameras is that it can do computational photography and image blending in real time. It was able to perfectly expose for the sky and blend that sky exposure well with the foreground, which is a challenging foreground to capture because you've got dark shadows and glowing lava at the same time. So it was able to blend all of that pretty seamlessly and pretty naturally all in real time. Whereas somebody like me who took a single exposure captured from the time lapse, I had to do quite a bit of post-processing and editing to get the exposure from the sky to line up with the exposure of the foreground and for all of that to blend seamlessly. It took a lot more work than the iPhone, which did everything super seamlessly, super quick, and again, in real time. So yeah, big brownie points to Torin and his iPhone. While it certainly was valid to focus your attention on the beautiful sky that was happening above this eruption, I decided to focus my attention on a smaller scene with the lava river. Because we lost that harsh afternoon light and of course the total amount of ambient light was reduced because we were entering blue hour, the lava river started to become more visible, started to glow, and it created these beautiful textures that I think ended up being my favorite shots for this eruption. Shortly after sunset, the north vent decided to shut itself off. Thankfully, Pele held on throughout that sunset, so that was a big plus. But that marked the end to our mission to this particular eruption. Overall, I think it was successful, but honestly, I wish I had been on the south side sooner rather than later to be able to get a little bit closer to those high fountaining episodes. The following morning, we did indulge ourselves to a little bit of wildlife photography. Torin was eager to see a pueo for the first time, so I decided to take him pueo hunting. I was able to find one chilling in the morning sunlight and was able to capture it beautifully with my professional telephoto lens setup. Wildlife photography is another area where iPhones tend to struggle in compared to these professional cameras. Torin was trying to use his binoculars and kind of try to get a shot of the pueo through his binoculars to get, of course, a closer look because the iPhone lenses don't zoom in that much. But in the process of him fiddling with all his stuff, the pueo decided to fly away. So of course he had to settle for an image of the pueo on the back of my camera to share on his social medias. Even though both Torin and I were not in great states of health, I think this short little trip went well for the most part. As you could tell, the iPhone does have some advantages over big, heavy camera setups. The first being how lightweight and easy and portable it is to use. It's so much easier to just pull out your camera, test out different compositions, and just overall be more creative. And I think we as photographers should always try to do this whenever we remember to. That's the problem, we don't always remember to. But we should always try, before we set up our big, heavy camera setups, take the iPhone, test out different compositions, test out different angles, and then once you find something that you really, really like, then pull out the big camera setups. But do your scouting with the iPhone. It's just so much easier to do it that way. The computational photography technology that iPhones utilize, I think, can come in handy for us photographers as well, just to give us a little bit of a template to work with when we're working in high dynamic range situations and weird lighting situations like how we had with the volcano. So until somebody like Sony, hopefully, implements computational photography into these cameras, I think having the high dynamic range ability that the iPhones have to kind of guide our editing is definitely something that we photographers should utilize within our workflows. But of course, when you compare an iPhone shot to a full frame high resolution sensor, the image quality is going to be totally different. Of course, the full frame sensor is going to have more detail. And of course, when you pair that beautiful sensor and high resolution sensor up with a super telephoto lens, it's hard for the miniature telephoto lenses on the iPhone to compete or come even remotely close to what the regular cameras can capture. However, if we put the comparison to the side, I think the more important lesson from this particular mission was to just get out with whatever you have, even if all you have is an iPhone. You could definitely tell Torin was having the time of his life witnessing this eruption and just capturing it with what he had, which was his binoculars and his iPhone. And overall, I think he had a more pleasurable experience out there in Mother Nature because I brought along my big heavy camera bag with multiple camera bodies, multiple lenses. And I could definitely tell you I didn't have a good time lugging all of that heavy gear around because I ended up not using most of it in the end. Maybe one day on the next mission, I can lend Torin one of my camera setups and he can capture his own photography bangers that aren't iPhone images on his own. But that's gonna about do it for me here. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you like this type of content, this travel, vacation, a little bit of photography, education, hit that like button, comment below, subscribe if you aren't already. We'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.